welcome to Demigod Debut. I'm Mal, self-proclaimed #1 fan of the Lightning Thief musical. Usually this is a podcast where my friend Julie reads the Percy Jackson books for the first time and we talk about them, but she is taking her in-between book break, and I have enlisted some experts to come and talk about the Lightning Thief musical. So I'm joined by my roommates, Cameron and RJ. Do you want to introduce yourselves and kind of share like your musical theater background and why you are experts?
So we met 45 years ago. To the day. So I'm RJ. Me and Cameron, we write musicals together. I write the music and lyrics. Cameron writes the book, which is the script. And some people say we're a little bit good at that.
I say you're a little bit good at that.
Hey.
Oh, thank you. I'm Cameron. RJ summed it up pretty well. But, we love writing musicals and we love seeing musicals and we love talking about musicals.
And critiquing them harshly.
Yes.
I'm already prepared to get my feelings a little bit hurt because I love this musical, but it's cool. Have you both read the books?
I've read most of the original series. I don't know if I read it all because I read the whole thing a long time ago. Periodically, I'll try and read The Lightning Thief in Spanish to try and practice my Spanish.
Okay, so very familiar with The Lightning Thief then.
Yes.
I did not grow up with the books. I was reading Aragon as a kid, which slaps, but is not relevant to the proceedings at present.
It is not, but as soon as there's an Aragon musical for us to discuss,
you'd
be my first call.
I'd be in on that. I love those were some big fat books, and I read through them.
Did you both see the show on Broadway?
I saw it off Broadway, actually. I saw the, what was it, 2017 or 2016 version of it. And I didn't see the Broadway version of it.
And I saw the national tour, which, from what I've heard, was pretty similar. Like most of the cast was the same. It seems like a lot of the production elements were the same.
Yeah, I think they just took the tour show and just parked it on Broadway. Like they were calling Broadway kind of their last tour stop.
An interesting way to think about it.
What about you, Mallory? Which variations did you see?
Well, Cameron, it actually sounds like you beat me to it. I was introduced to the cast recording first on Tumblr in 2017 because I am a Percy Jackson girly. I was just obsessed with this cast recording. And then a friend of mine got an internship when we were in college with one of the producers of the Lightning Thief tour. And so he did a bunch of stuff with that. And so got us tickets to the opening night, and the opening night party. So I didn't see it until the tour, but I kind of had some history with it prior.
Well, it seems like we have a good sort of scope of understanding of this show.
Yeah, I feel like I'll be coming at this more from I like Percy Jackson and I like to consume musicals for fun.
So you're biased.
I don't know. I'm not like a musical theater creator the way you are. So this is fun. This is exciting.
It's perfect. A melange of ideas.
But I mean, I love this musical. This podcast starts with a little thunder crack the same way the musical does, just because I love it.
Yeah.
This is also one of my favorite albums to run to. I listen to it often.
Do we care about spoiling The Lightning Thief?
No.
Great. Does the bolt ever get used?
No.
Huh. Okay.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they never actually use the bolt. That's interesting. I've never actually considered that.
Because I'm thinking about opening with the bolt being, heard, and it's is somebody using the bolt there, or is that supposed to be Zeus discovering that the bolt has been stolen and being pissed about it?
That's what Zeus's farts sound like.
I don't know. I'm just the thunder is there for vibes.
I like RJ's interpretation.
He's a little gassy up there. And when he gets mad, he lets out a little...
I mean, sure. I guess the opening number, the day I got expelled, they're immediately just hey, my parents are gods and that sucks. This is going to be a discussion on that. And I also appreciate the way it starts. Percy's part starts the same as it does in the book with, look, I didn't want to be a half-blood.
It's a cool vibe that they get it, I really like that openings that, the gods are real, the Greek gods.
Yeah.
Something about that vibe is just really cool. It's okay, these are kids and, they're young and hip, but they're going to tell you how it is. And I respect it for that.
To get into the weeds a little bit with musical theater construction, right? Musicals are really inefficient because you have a lot of plot happening in the scenes, and then you take these breaks where characters will start to sing about what they're feeling, which will often really slow down the pace of something. And The Lightning Thief is a very dense book, so they do a really good job with this opening number. I think it's 7 minutes long, and you get the whole field trip sequence as well as the whole introduction of what a half-blood is, how they feel. So they do a really good job being efficient with the storytelling in this opening. Also, I think Mrs. Dodds is like Southern in it.
Well, Mrs. Dodds canonically is from Georgia.
Is that true? Well, when you say Mrs. Dodds canonically is from Georgia, what do you mean by that?
Well, just like that's what Percy says about her. He's like, she's this math teacher from Georgia. Like that's, I guess, part of the cover story is that she's Southern.
She pretends she's from Georgia.
She pretends to be from Georgia.
The opening number also, like, I think it rides a very interesting level in like the angst meter, because this show gets really angsty real quick, and I think this part is the perfect balance of like, it's fun, it's silly, and also I'm a kid and I'm sad and my life is hard. I buy it in the opening number. Like the day I got expelled, like, yeah, that sucks. They get a pass from me then.
But they don't get a pass from you later for the angst.
It's a combination of just how like sad, not sad, like angsty they make this character's lyrics, and also like Chris McCarroll, brilliant vocalist. He's really laying it on thick in this show, and so you get this like, no one ever will take my. It's like, it's so. I just want him to be chill for like 5 minutes.
I love all the angst. I think it really represents the character.
I also kind of enjoy the angst.
Well, I don't care about the character, I don't know Percy Jackson.
RJ just doesn't want to hear you complain.
RJ is sick of all these children complaining.
No, you can complain. Complaining is okay.
What age group would you say like the original book is targeted at?
It's not YA, it's middle grades. So that's like 9 to 14-ish, I think. Like it's very much targeted towards middle schoolers.
And the original incarnation of the show was like a youth theater tour, like it was sort of being targeted at that age group. And so I think I'll call it the heightened expressionism of Percy in this musical, his recurring and somewhat exaggerated angst plays well to that type of audience, to play Hades' advocate.
I think it's a fair point, but I also think kids can take a little nuance. Kids deserve a little ounce of nuance as a treat.
That is true.
Seems like you're echoing a little bit what the reviewers of the Broadway version said.
Hey, listen, I go with the most popular opinion. I don't form any of my own.
One thing I want to add about this opening number is the Lightning Thief. It is a self-contained story, but it is also a series. It's also a bunch of books that have a building plot.
Right.
And so like they introduce Kronos in this song. They tell the story about, Kronos eating his kids, which like Kronos is not really a relevant character to this show in the sense of like, he doesn't appear, he doesn't directly influence the events, And so it's a little bit funny that like this musical does set up Kronos as the antagonist of like future musicals that don't exist,
Yeah, I mean, the Kronos is definitely there behind the scenes, like in the book. And they also start at the museum in the book with that story. I don't know. I feel like they kept the same level of Kronos as they do in the book. But yeah, it definitely sets it up for later when Kronos kind of gets more important as the villain, I guess.
RJ, thoughts on Kronos?
Well, Kronos isn't a particularly bad problem. I think there is a little bit of like Easter egg dropping in the musical, which from Percy Jackson fans, I'm sure it was like really cool to hear all the little bits about like mythology. I feel like if we get a little bit in the weeds. It's again, like I was not that familiar with Percy Jackson. I'm sure like 90% of the people in the audience were. It's like that's a me thing.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're gonna put something out, for like mass consumption, especially somewhere like Broadway, you kind of have to make something that markets not only to fans of the book, but also to people who are walking in with like no knowledge of what this is. So I think, if you thought it was a little too much, there is something to be said for that.
And I think that's where the sort of origin in the TYA field came back to bite it a little bit in the Broadway run. Because as far as I know, the Broadway run was not very successful.
No, it's not.
And I think that's largely because, you know, it what it was originally built for was not Broadway. And so once it ended up there, it got kind of critically panned. And then I'm sure a lot more of the audience members who were seeing it on Broadway weren't as familiar with the source material.
I also think, and I don't know what their intentions were with Broadway, but I do wonder if maybe it was to be able to make more money with the licensing. Like, because I feel like right now I'm seeing constant TikTok videos of high schools and colleges and community theaters like doing the Lightning Thief right now. And I think, I don't know, maybe it was they knew this might not do as well on Broadway, but if we get it there, then more people will be familiar with it and like the licensing will become more popular.
I think they're onto something with that.
Well, they're also doing a like a pared down version with TheaterWorks. Like they cut down the cast size by like maybe half, and now it's more like a concert style show, and that's been touring for a little bit. I don't know if it's still touring, but that seemed like maybe a smart is an interesting word, but like it feels like a safer home for that show as something small, something for kids, something that like can boop around from place to place a little easier.
Yeah, I feel like The Lightning Thief is a show that would fit in well at like New World stages, you know, because they've got like bubble guppies and stuff there often. Like that's kind of what I think this show is made for. Like it's meant to be small and it's meant to have an audience of like kids.
Wow, you don't think this is a serious show? You don't think this deserves to be on Broadway?
Wow.
Okay, listen, Broadway is a business. I love this musical. Like this is in my top 5 like favorite musicals of all time just because like I love the source material and I feel like they did it well. I also know that people who consume theater often are kind of elitist and a lot of times on Broadway the ticket prices just like don't lend itself to like bringing kids. So
It's fair. I think going back to like the subject of Chronos and other details, there were a couple of things to me that were obviously things that were true from the source material, but that when they were brought up in the musical, I thought were just like weird. And the two that are at the top of my head, and you know, Percy Jackson fans eat me a lot. One was the fact that like his 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 dyslexia comes from the fact that he's supposed to read ancient Greek. That are we saying that like all of the like Greek gods are like dyslexic? Like if Zeus came down, he'd be like, I can't read, like because
My understanding, right? The way the Lightning Thief is written is it's like Percy Jackson confiding with you. You know, you are the receiver of this, and it's Percy Jackson's personal diary, his personal journal, right? And it's not that, oh, like the Greek gods are dyslexic. It's that if you are dyslexic or if you have some sort of learning disorder, it could be because you have a little bit of magic in your heart. You know, like the logic is sort of like the way they describe it is their brains are hardwired for ancient Greek. Is that am I correct in that understanding?
yeah. Well, the way Percy Jackson came about is that Rick Riordan kind of made this up as a story to tell his son who has dyslexia and ADHD. And so that's kind of where that part of it is born from. And so I think it comes from like trying to say like, oh, these things aren't disabilities, like they're superpowers. Like look at these heroes that like have these things. And so, you know,
I hear it. It's beautiful. You know, it makes sense. You know, but you know what? I do get it. I do get it. It is a story. You know, it uplifts. It makes you feel.
No, let me argue a little on your side here,
Okay.
RJ, right? In the stage
Yeah.
musical, I think that it's something that isn't described as well because you're not hearing like Percy's inner monologue as much. And so it's just sort of this thing of just like, oh, and then one of the abilities of these kids is that a lot of them are dyslexic and a lot of them can read ancient Greek. You know, like it's a little less clear because they're trying to fit so much story in. So it kind of gets lost in the weeds a little bit.
Other elements that I didn't quite get was that like so the mom has that whole song about like, oh, you eat blue food and you like things that are blue, and that's cool. And I was very confused because I just thought it would be a one-off thing. It's like, hey, you dye your food blue, and it was a whole 3-minute song about dyeing your food blue, and I was like, what? How, I don't. What are we doing?
Yeah, that second song is definitely for the fans of the book, I feel like, because like they don't give you the background in the musical because I mean they don't have time of the blue food and like why that is a connection that like Percy and Sally have.
What is the background of that?
Well, so the background is that when Sally married Gabe, at one point, as kind of like an FU to him, she decided to like make all their food blue. Then it just kind of became like her and Percy's thing that they would just like always make the food blue. And so it's kind of their cute little mother-son thing. But yeah, the musical doesn't really explain that to us.
Now you bring up Gabe Ugliano, right? Why
Yes.
doesn't he get a song in this show? I think this would have been a great time to sort of set him up, give him a song. Maybe he has a second song in Act Two,
Interesting.
when he gets sort of turned into stone.
Oh, and while he's like, being frozen, he sort of remarks about how his body has changed. So he says, as if I was made of stone. I think it'd be a great.
And what's the food that he's always asking Sally to make him? Is it bean dip? So he wants like 3-layer or 4-layer bean dip.
I think it's 7-layer bean dip.
7-layer. Well, that's perfect because I think there's 7 people in the show, so you could have.
Yeah, so everybody gets a layer of the bean
So they
dip.
can each be a layer of the dip. I played the bean track.
They're all representations of his psyche. They sort of split apart, and they're 7 actors. They're each 1 layer of the bean dip.
This is the Gabe musical now, or
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's always been.
yeah.
It's not called Percy Jackson. It's called The Lightning Thief.
okay.
The Lightning Thief, the Gabe musical.
He's also not the lightning thief.
Well, Percy wasn't the Lightning Thief either.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
So
I mean, I guess. I mean, they have Gabe show up in a scene prior to this song. But yeah, I don't know, it might have been a good idea to like start the song with more of a Sally Gabe kind of vibe and then go into the stuff between them on the beach.
We're talking about Strong now, right? The second song in the
yeah.
show.
hey there, Sally. It's me, Gabe. You better not turn my food blue. No, I hate blue food.
Fan cast RJ as Gabe Ugliano.
I know the character so well. Nailed it.
Well, if he's Gabe, he also plays Luke and Ares because
It's kind of my track.
Honestly, I feel like yeah, if you were playing a track, I think you'd make a good Luke.
What can I say?
I think you could also make a good Percy, I think. Or Grover. You're a swing. You can do whatever.
Let me in there. I'll do it. I'll do anything for a check.
Mallory knows the producers, so
Not actually.
Get
me in on that revival.
But in terms of this song, Percy he's a weird central character because he's very reactive. In musicals, you like a really active protagonist. That's why you normally get the sort of second number I want song. And this song isn't Percy's song; it's Sally's song, but it's largely about and to Percy, and does do some of the work of like motivating him, especially because immediately after this, Sally bites it.
I think that's really why it exists. It's like, oh, the mom is good. Now the mom is dead and you are sad.
Yeah, you got to give us a little more of her so we can kind of be sad that she is dead for more than just, oh, Percy's sad. Like we gotta get to know her and be like, oh, she was a good mom. This is sad.
Yeah, because we see how it impacts Gabe. We see how it affects him.
And that's what really matters. Gabe is the central character.
The Lightning Thief, the Gabe musical.
The real Lightning Thief was the fact that Percy stole the spotlight from Gabe.
The real Lightning Thief was the Gabe we made along the way.
I was gonna say I would love to see like y'all's take on Percy Jackson after your Great Gatsby, but now I feel like I know what your take would be, and it would be the Gabe musical.
It's just Gabe. It's just like a family drama with just Gabe in New York.
What the hell is happening?
He's like trying to track down Sally. He's like, my wife's gone. I have to find her. What did you think of the interpretation of him in the TV show? I feel like he was more sympathetic.
I think he kind of, well, he was more just kind of a sad dude. Like, I was looking at him, I was like, this man is sad. Like, this man kind of sucks. But it wasn't like a cartoonishly evil stepdad vibe, the way he is like in the book and also sort of in the musical. I think he's a little sillier in the musical as well.
Yeah.
But there is also an undertone of violence to musical Gabe. I feel like that show Gabe doesn't really have.
An undertone of violence.
No. Violins. Violins, a backing track.
Oh, the undertones.
The undertones of violins.
I'm Gabe. I'm Gabe. I remember that.
Sally is an interesting character though. I'm glad that the TV show gave her more like scenes and flashbacks and stuff to sort of give her more context, because she kind of appears and then disappears. Is she more relevant in the later books? Does she show up?
She does show up a little bit more, but I mean, she's always just kind of Percy's mom. So you kind of see her at the beginning of the book and like maybe at the end of the book, but like most of Percy's adventures happen in the in between. All right, so third song.
Is that Good Kid?
No, Good Kid is like 9.
No. Good Kid's not for a while.
What? Oh, you're right. I keep thinking that's like that song should be earlier. But that's whatever. I understand why they put it there. He needs more songs up front. Whatever.
Well, it goes back to sort of what I was saying of Percy is a very reactive character. You know, like a lot of the show is sort of things happening to him, which is really hard for a musical theater character, because it's like you don't want him to just keep singing like, and now this thing happened to me, and now this thing happened to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that's kind of how Percy is in a lot of the plots of the book. It's just like, here's this thing that's happening that I have to do now. I don't want to be doing this.
Which is that works for a book because it's, the cool things are happening and you're getting to experience them. But in a musical, it's all about like the characters revealing their emotional like truths to you through song, and you're directly hindered if you don't get those moments, and if they don't have like real like change and win behind them.
I agree with you, and I'll also say, in a disagreement with you,
what
the Percy Jackson musical has a lot of it has a lot more action than a lot of musicals do. It has a lot more fights and monsters and cool sort of special effects, which might be a sign that the creators kind of knew that it didn't have quite as strong legs as some musicals, or it could just be like, yeah, we're excited about shooting some toilet paper across the stage.
That I think was the strongest aspect of the musical to me, is the stagecraft. Like when they made I guess we're right there when they made the Minotaur. I thought that was so cool. Like, and they do a couple other creatures that are just I just thought that was so smart and so scrappy how they were doing all these stage effects. And it really made it magical more than like a projection or some other method. Like I just thought it was cool.
Yeah, and it also feels like, I mean, again, I think this is very much a show that is built for high schools and community theaters, but like this feels very much like the stagecraft that like you can pull off somewhere. Like it doesn't require projections and like the big fancy things. Like you can make like this Minotaur puppet. You can make the Mrs. Dodds with the wings. And yeah, I think the stagecraft is fun and creative.
Gosh, what happens during this? Is this just the number 3? Is that just the sequence with the Minotaur?
Yeah, that's the Minotaur, and then he passes out and has a dream and gets the seashell from his dad.
Ah, yes.
Is that when he normally gets it?
No, that doesn't happen until after the casino in the book.
Do they have the casino in the musical?
They do, but it's just like a little drive-by section. Yeah. So it happens a lot earlier here. And then he also sees Annabeth in the dream.
Weird.
And then that's when she tells him, you drool when you sleep, because that's one consistent that we have to have in any good Percy Jackson adaptation is you drool when you sleep.
Oh, because he's the son of Poseidon, and that's the water.
Sure.
The son of Poseidon.
The tide inside of him. Inside of me. And then he starts drooling.
God.
Wait, sorry. When Annabeth says you drool when you sleep, is he actually hearing that?
I think, because I mean, I can't remember the staging of it exactly. But I'm pretty sure he's like supposed to be kind of in between dreams and reality or whatever, like kind of coming back into because like he sees his dad and that's definitely a dream. And then I think because he like questions like, is she real? Like she's coming closer to me, all these things, like, is this a dream or so I think it's kind of like a because in the book he's like in and out of consciousness when he first meets her. And so I think that's kind of what we're trying to do here. And then it's kind of her in real life that he sees at the end, I guess.
Dream sequences are always a little fun in musicals, and I think they did a pretty good job with it.
Yeah.
I will say, I think this was probably the weirdest dream sequence that I've seen.
Ha ha.
RJ, do you get the reference?
I sadly do. Boo. Hiss.
And then Percy ends up at Camp Half-Blood, right? Arguably the central location of this whole series.
At camp, yeah. And we spend a lot more time there in the musical than we do in the show because we spend pretty much the rest of the act at camp.
That's weird. So they don't actually go. Oh no, Killer Quest is the end of Act 1?
Yeah, they don't go on the quest until Act 2.
That's so weird.
Yeah. The difference in pacing between the musical and the show is very fascinating to me because it feels like we have completely different focuses in telling this same story. And it's so interesting.
I'll say that musicals tend to work better when you have a group of characters who are all around each other for a while, because they can play off each other more naturally and they can develop their relationships with each other. And, you know, like a good example of this is Carousel, which is, you know, a golden age musical where basically in at the beginning of the show, one of the characters is working for this like mill owner who's like a very minor character. And then Act 2, like they need to rob some rich guy, and it's the mill owner again who hasn't appeared for most of the show. And it's just like these little threads of consistency. And so I think it helps the musical to just like spend more time in Camp Half-Blood because these are the relevant characters. You know, they're getting to know each other, they're building their relationships with each other, they're establishing the like themes of the show. So it makes sense that they spend more time there.
There aren't that many important per the musical, right? There aren't that many important locations. There's like Percy's house, there's Camp Half-Blood, there's the underworld, and then they're just like driving through the rest of it. So I understand why because that's where he comes back to at the end. I think it makes sense. Like, oh, this is a really important location. Remember, this one is home. Like we spend 5 minutes at his house, but this one is home.
But it is interesting to me that like if this one is home, that we start with the song "Another Terrible Day" because this is probably my least favorite song in the show. I don't have a whole lot of patience for Mr. D. I'm just kind of like, okay, you're the one complaining. Like these kids are the ones who actually have it hard. They do a lot of complaining, and I would rather listen to the kids complain instead of this like God who's here having to deal with the kids. So I don't know if I just want this song to be shorter maybe because we like talk to several different campers, and as much as I appreciate like characters we don't see until later books like Katie Gardner and Selena Beauregard, I'm just kind of because we also hear from Selena again in the campfire song. So it's like I don't know, this song just doesn't do it for me.
Especially since we haven't even we still haven't started the quest yet. Like chop cut this 3-minute song. Get me to the quest.
You know, to try and get in the mind of the people who wrote this musical, they were probably like, oh, well, Mr. D is a pretty big character. What would his song be? And then they wrote that song, which is not how I would advise someone to write a musical, because there's a temptation of like, oh, this character's fun, you know, like this character is interesting, you know, we should give them a song. But that's not the only reason to put a song into a show. And this time could have been better spent on something else.
Yeah. Well, and then it feels like the next song is basically just a continuation of the introducing Percy to camp, because the next song you have like Chiron and Luke who also explain like their little corners of camp and like the way that they see this world. And so it's like, did we really need Mr. D's perspective before this?
Yeah, you got Chiron and Luke being like, these are the freaks, these are the jocks, these are the Apollo kids.
And here's where you belong.
But are the Apollo kids not also the freaks and jocks?
I mean, they're all kind of freaks and jocks in their own way.
Yeah, they are.
You got the nerds, you got the popular kids, you got the ambrosia smokers,
you got the plastics.
Do you guys know about the oracle, like the actual oracle in like ancient Greece? they went to like the temple where the oracle was supposed to be, and they found that it was built on like gas vents, basically, like naturally occurring gas vents. And so they were like, whoever was the freaking oracle was just like having their mind warped by just actual gases from the earth.
Yeah, they're like having drug hallucinations and thinking that they saw the future, which that's so interesting and so fun.
So anyway, going back to Camp Half Blood, I'm sure there was a group that hung around the naturally occurring vents who went to camp.
Yeah, it's a camp full of teenagers, and there's also like two adults who don't seem all that involved. Like Chiron is pretty hands off, and Mr.
Yeah.
D is just doesn't want to be there. So like there was some happenings happening at Camp Half Blood.
Luke is like he's the equivalent of like an RA, right, for the Hermes cabin.
I mean,
Yeah.
Was there any sort of like subdivision of cabins, or like people really like watching the kids to make sure they didn't do anything crazy? Or
In the books, there's just kind of a cabin for each god, and then there's a counselor for each cabin.
okay, if Gabe Ugliano was a demigod or a half blood, who do you think he would be descended from?
Dionysus. They have a similar energy.
That's the obvious choice. What's the less obvious choice?
Hephaestus, the god of metal work.
Hephaestus, the god of incels.
Gabe he is the manager of a like electronic store, I think. So Hephaestus actually
Oh, Zeus.
or Zeus, the electricity.
Gabe's one of the big three, let me tell you.
He's a son of Kronos.
For Gabe the musical, he can be a son of whoever you want him to be.
He's the son of Poseidon. The son of Poseidon.
But yeah, we have this your sign, their sign song, right? Which is them being like, oh yeah, every god kid has a sign. And I feel like they did a fine job of like connecting it to Percy's existential angst, about, his family and his parentage.
I feel like I don't remember how is that the no, that's not the campfire song, because that's freaking called the campfire song. Gosh darn it.
No, yeah, this is the one where Chiron's like, your dad might send a sign that he's yours, and you just have to kind of like wait around for that sign. And then Luke is basically like, don't wait around waiting for the gods to do anything. They're not going to do anything. Like, we're your family now, kind of vibe. So it's very two different ways to look at like signs from the gods in that song.
I like how they just made him sort of gallop. Like, they didn't make it any sort of horse. He's just sort of like,
yeah,
a horse. Like,
I do enjoy that he's just a guy with a tail.
It was really funny to me.
And they're like, he's a centaur, and you have to be just kind of like, okay, sure.
I mean, that's what theater does best,
Centaurs?
Yeah, centaurs. And also suspension of disbelief.
And then they do the freaking the capture
the flag.
Okay, I'll put you in. I'll put you in. I'll put you in. What are we doing? It's fun. It's fun. It's a cool song. I don't understand why we have to introduce this character so coolly, who is then irrelevant.
That is true.
But no, RJ, put yourself in the perspective of the musical writers, right? They're reading the book. They come across Clarice. Yeah. They're like, this is such an interesting character. What would her song be like? And they're like, oh, it would be like Put You in Your Place. So they write the song and they put it in the show.
Okay, but it's true. It's true. That's what. But what does Clarice do for the rest of the show?
Nothing. But
she's at camp while they're somewhere else.
Well, they think that she's guilty.
But not in this, really. They don't really suspect Clarice, probably because we go so quick from Ares stole the bolt to like figuring out what happens, like we don't even really have time to. But that's later. I think Clarice is a more important character like later in the series, but we do need some sort of bully character for Percy to face, I think, to kind of get these powers to awaken in him, because this is the first song where you see the toilet paper.
Yeah, that's true.
It is the introduction of the toilet paper. Well, I guess that's sort of maybe where my point is coming from, where this song is about Clarice, but my recollection, I watched the film, so this is like, it's my perspective is skewed, but my recollection of the important part of the capture the flag is that Percy goes from being a weak wimp to, oh, actually he's like really strong, like his water powers are real cool. but it seems like the perspective was a little skewed to where it was like mostly about Clarissa's real cool, and then just a little bit about toilet paper boy throwing his toilet paper.
That's very true. And now I'm thinking about the potential of this as like an Annabeth song instead, because like we don't hear from Annabeth in her like solo song until Act 2. Because I think again you can get another perspective on camp that way, because Annabeth very much has a perspective that like she has to be the best in all these camp activities in order to get her mom to notice her. So like we could meet Annabeth here, and we could also see her doing kind of the same thing that Luke did in like explaining his sort of worldview through telling Percy like what he should expect with his father. Then you could also get Annabeth here being like, you can make your father notice you if you're really, really good at capture the flag.
See, on that note, when I was watching the musical, because I didn't have a good memory of the source material, I saw this, I was like, oh, that's the girl. She was not the girl. Clarice was not the girl. We were waiting for a different girl. But you gave this girl a whole song before you got our third principal character. Like, what do we...
RJ, do you ship Clarice and Percy?
I don't care.
Enemies to lovers, RJ.
He can do whatever he wants. Listen, if she wants to kiss toilet paper boy, I cannot stop her.
Well, hear me out, right? So, Mallory, you said, oh, Percy needs a bully. He needs somebody to push him to unlock these powers, right?
To put him in his place.
Yeah, he needs somebody to put it. Toilet paper boy needs somebody to put him in his place. And who better than Bean Man, right?
What?
Gabe Agliano shows up at camp, sings a song.
Oh my god.
The god of the 7 layers.
I cannot stand you.
the layer thief.
Because he's got Gabe breathing down his neck, and so that could inspire him to use his toilet paper powers.
He'll put him in his place, and his place is between the guacamole and the cheese.
Oh my god. Okay, so this could be an Annabeth song, or it could be an even better Gabe song.
But yeah, it goes back to does Clarice need a song? Probably not. How can we use this song for one of the more important characters to develop them even deeper?
Or even just shifting the whole focus from Clarice putting you in your place to like a song more generally about this is why capture the flag is important. If you win it, you feel like you're cool. And everyone's thrown in their perspective. And then Percy can give his perspective. Like, if I win capture the flag, I'll feel like I'm a cool god. And then he does the water thing. He's like, I'm cool. I'm toilet paper boy. And it forwards the plot.
Woo! We're all about forwarding that plot.
And that's when Gabe comes in.
Yeah, but after capture the flag, we go to the campfire.
It's a cute song.
Yeah, it's another complaining song. It's another, these are the problems that we have.
I feel like this is Luke's big song.
They're really setting up like, oh, he's gonna be bad in Act 2. Ooh, he hates the gods.
Kinda, yeah. They do go pretty heavy on the Luke. I don't know, because everybody kind of gets a verse. I also don't really think Grover's verse, like, I guess it makes sense, but it does feel like a little bit like we kind of tried to shoehorn Grover in here. Because he's not a demigod.
He's just a goat.
A goat. And like he does introduce us to like the pan thing and how that's like his whole life's work, but also if you're not making more musicals, it sort of just doesn't feel like something that even needs to be brought up because it's not that relevant in this particular story.
We'll get to it eventually, but I think Tree on the Hill is a much better Grover song than his verse in the Campfire song.
I feel like there's another general, I won't call it an issue. Maybe some people will call it a feature, but because of...
I'll call it a feature. You'll call it an issue.
Because of all the doubling that goes on in the show, I feel like a lot of the characters end up being like really like Flanderized.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Luke is his one thing is I hate the gods. They're bad, like, and we don't really get to. Of course, he's not that important of a character in this musical, but it's like I feel like the characters that double a lot. It's like I've got like 1 or 2 scenes for this character. Here's their thing. Next time you see me, I'm gonna be somebody else. Remember this character? They do this one thing, which is like I think effective for in like a musical comedy standpoint. I think that works well, but I think it sort of hinders some of the more dramatic moments.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Also, the whole verse about like Aphrodite Stealing all her daughter's dates. I hate that one.
Weird.
Yeah, I didn't like that one either.
Weird.
Weird. I think that Selena's, I don't know how this show ends, but I think that Selena's probably the lightning thief. She probably stole the lightning to get back at her mom.
I think maybe she did. And I think maybe she would have been correct if her mom is stealing all her dates.
I wonder why they didn't give Gabe a verse at the campfire song.
Yeah. Talk about how he hates the gods.
He's got some things to say.
Gabe's at the campfire, but he's just eating his
His dip.
Just another complaining song. We're complaining a lot.
They love complaining.
They're not wrong, but also I feel like to someone who doesn't know the books might not appreciate all this complaining.
The angst.
Because you're looking for just like a fun, happy time.
You're looking for the fun, happy time. That's what musical theater is. Speaking of fun, happy time, man, that oracle. Am I right?
That oracle. Okay, my biggest thought on this one has always just been, why did they ever so slightly change the words of the prophecy? Because in the book, it's you shall go west and face the God who is turned. And then in this, it's you shall go west and face the treacherous Lord. And I'm just like, why?
The treacherous Lord.
Give us the original prophecy.
So the whole original prophecy is you shall go west and face the God who is turned. You shall find what was stolen and see it returned. And then there's 2 more lines. And those are the same as they are in the musical. But then this one, it's you shall go west and face the treacherous Lord. You shall find what was stolen and see it restored. So they just like changed it to a different rhyming. Because returned and turned is almost rhyming the same word twice.
RJ?
In lyric writing, they call it an identity, which is like it's the same sounds. And sometimes why it's sometimes a problem is because it ends up if you can't not hearing all the words clearly, it could just sound like someone said the word twice, versus when it's 2 separate words, it can make it more clear. And so it's a little bit of a lyric writing no, but not necessarily a prophecy no. From a lyric writing kind of or standpoint, I can understand why they changed it for the musical.
Interesting. Okay, thank you, because I've wondered that. I was like, there has to be a reason, because I don't think you just like change that to change it.
The treacherous Lord.
It does sound a lot cooler than the God who is turned, though. You gotta say, the treacherous Lord.
He's turned over his 7-layer bean dip.
Enough with the bean.
That treacherous Lord.
The bean dip thief. Gabe, the musical.
Restore it. Find that bean dip restored.
So when can I expect you to write and put that on?
We'll have it done by Thursday.
All I wanted was a bean dip with 7 layers.
Can I audition? Like, actually?
Sure.
You want to be? We have 7 tracks open.
I want to be the sour cream.
I see that for you. We'll also call you in for the pico de gallo.
Amazing. I don't know that I'm right for Pico de Gallo, though.
I think you are right for Pico de Gallo.
Original pico de gallo.
Is it time for us to talk about Good Kid now?
Oh,
Good kid, good song.
good kid, good song.
This song, I understand how it has endured. Gosh, I think it is. It kind of makes me feel it. Like I feel for Percy. It's a little bit like whiny, but not more whiny than like a regular like emo song. And I think it lays it all out. I am a little, if I have one nitpick, there's a lot of songs in this show that I don't like the endings of, and this is one of them. I don't like it's good enough for someone, good enough for someone, good enough for someone. I feel like there was a better ending that they could have figured out. But other than that, I think this song is I like how it starts out really chill and it's same old story. So I think they weren't too heavy handed with it. Chris McCarroll gives an amazing vocal performance. I think it's a winner.
If Chris McCarroll has no fans, then I am dead, because he really did great as Percy. And you know what? I'm still mad about the 2020 Tonys. Thank you.
Yeah, the Tony Awards. Are we going to talk about that?
I want to.
Famously snubbed.
Well, because it made me so mad the way that everybody was talking like, oh my gosh, we're so glad that we get to have this Tonys to like celebrate the theater that like we did get to experience like this year that was cut short and was like so hard for all of us with COVID and everything. And so they like before the nominations, they were like talking this whole big game about like we're going to celebrate like the theater that we got to experience and like this is going to be this big like great thing. And then they completely snub the only original scored musical that we had all season. Like they nominated 4 plays in the like original score category instead of nominating The Lightning Thief. And plays can have really, really great music. And I don't think I saw any of these plays to like know whether their music is, but usually like plays aren't nominated because like musicals, the music is so integral to like the way that the story is being told. So like they're more not like award worthy or whatever, but just I don't know. It rubbed me the wrong, like more than Christmas Carol not getting nominated. That like score snub like really really rubbed me the wrong way. I was like it felt mean, it felt nasty, and it felt very much like we're saying like this show does not belong. This show is not good enough. Like when they were acting like that's not what these Tonys were about. So that's my little soapbox about the 2020 Tonys.
RJ, what do you think of the score?
I think it's definitely competently written. I don't know how many to me in the genre of like rock musicals, I think there's other scores that do a lot more interesting and inventive things. I definitely don't think it's a bad score at all. I just I think I hear you, Mallory, where it seems like it was very much a sort of targeted snub. But I also see the perspective of like, should that season have been and this sounds really mean, but like I could see them wanting to not make it just like a participation trophy.
Right.
If they were gonna treat it as like as scrupulous as they would with any year, just with less shows, I can understand it. It did feel like that was the sort of like, what do you call it? Like the targeted show of like we didn't like this one.
Yeah. Well, because I kind of compare it a lot to like Be More Chill that was the year before, and how that, didn't get any nominations, but it did get nominated for score because I feel like it kind of similarly got its start smaller, and then the cast album kind of made people aware of it and made people fans.
Yeah.
And so they kind of had this like built-in audience. And so especially because like Be More Chill did get the nomination, for them to just like change the entire category to not give the lightning, because they sometimes will nominate like a play. Like I think it has happened like 10 times in the history of the Tonys that a play has been nominated for best score, because plays can have really good music, but to make it so that it's all plays that probably like had other musicals with original scores opened that year, like none of these plays probably would have gotten that nod, so it's like, was it kind of a participation trophy anyway in trying to like get the Lightning Thief musical out? And now I feel bad for talking about the score of these plays, because I mean I don't know them, and maybe all 4 were really great, but I don't know, I'm just like felt nasty.
Yeah, and Chris McCarroll, I think he did a good job. I think he could have gotten nominated.
But yeah, this Tony Awards and also 2017, I feel like are contentious for me personally. But
going back to the song, couple shout outs I wanted to give. Right, it answers a lot of the big questions that I've been wondering about the show, like how many schools did Percy go to and how many years.
And how many of the places did he get kicked out of?
Every place, actually.
So true.
Oh, so that's 6 places he got kicked out of in 6 years.
I also want to say that I'm glad that they give some more character development to Gabe. They call him World Class.
World Class Dirtbag, which is, a little bit of libel there.
Genius Lyrics says Gabe was a world class jerk. Dad was never there. Although I definitely thought that it was World Class Dirtbag.
A World Class Dirtbag was never there.
Okay, I thought what you were
Yeah.
about to say was Gabe was world class, jerk dad was never there, and so it was like the jerk is referring to his dad, not to Gabe.
Gabe was world class.
Yeah, I think that's true. Gabe was world class. Jerk dad was never there.
Gabe was world class. Jerk dad was never there.
And then, Percy says the only family that really mattered, well, she vanished into the air, clearly referring to Gabe there.
Using she, her pronouns for Gabe. A queer story.
But yeah, I like this song. It's good. Maybe my favorite song on the show. Definitely top 3. I'm curious what would have happened to the show if Good Kid was like song number 2, like RJ thought it was.
Interesting.
Percy doesn't get a big song until the end of Act 1. Like,
yeah, that is true.
He really needs an I want. We don't really know what he wants until I guess now he's like, I'm looking for a place to belong. We're almost at the end of the act. Like, who are we following until now?
Yeah, he could I feel like you could take the same exact song and make it about him getting expelled from school. Except for, the like mom.
Yeah, and like like when he's going to Camp Half Blood, and instead of like, I've been kicked out of this place, like I guess got kicked out of school. Hopefully this camp will be a place I can belong.
And then the last song of the act, they go on the quest. Because I think Percy like meets up with Luke after he sings Good Kid, and Luke is the one that convinces him to go on this quest. I believe that's what the staging is. It has been a minute.
Hey Percy, you need to go halfway around the world to find the lightning thief. I'll stay here and keep the camp safe.
Well, it's more he tells Percy that like if they want you to go to the underworld, like that's where your mom is. You could bring your mom. It's more like he kind of introduces Percy to that side, and that's why Percy's like,
yes,
yeah, I'll do it. Not because my dad needs me, but because if my mom's alive, she's gonna be in the underworld. Like that's how the song opens.
And doesn't Percy always do that, or is that, or does Luke normally not convince him?
And I understand why Luke has to convince him in the musical, because in the book he kind of comes to that conclusion in his head, like in his narration, like in what he's telling us. He's like, I'm going not because I care about my dad, but also because I can save my mom.
It's all the while like Luke is there like flossing his teeth with the lightning bolt,
Yeah.
just like, yeah, Percy, have fun on your quest. Oh, see ya. I don't know where that lightning bolt is. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, there is no lightning bolt. It's just me, your cool friend Luke.
I heard your dad was world class. That's great.
Your stepdad was world class.
Oh yeah, your jerk dad was never there. I feel that. My dad's a jerk too. Anyways, have fun on your quest.
And it is so wild that the quest is just now starting at the end of Act 2.
Like, what have we done so far?
Yeah, we really just went to camp.
We just went to camp.
I feel like Annabeth hasn't gotten there yet. Like, hasn't gotten to the point yet where she would go on this quest. Oh, she's a little underdeveloped by this point.
She hasn't even sung her song yet.
That's why I think we were onto something. We meaning me, when I said that Put You in Your Place should be an Annabeth song.
I mean, we've only gone through Act 1, right?
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of material that is important, especially in the book. If I was gonna write Percy Jackson as a musical, with no context of any other source material, I wonder what happens if there is no Camp Half Blood. Hear me out. All the kids are just like at Percy's school, and they all just like know each other. And then Percy's mom gets like stolen, and then he just goes to get her from then, and we don't have to wait 45 minutes for him to do it. That because like if my mom gets stolen, I'll be like, I'm gonna go now. I'll get it right. I could do it now.
Yeah, that's true. It almost feels like you can tell the story of the Lightning Thief without Camp Half-Blood, and that feels kind of like sacrilege to say, but
and it's important when you have a lot of books where like the camp is really important, but like without that continuity, you don't if you just get all the characters in one place some other way, you don't need to establish it.
The quest is where you really kind of lock in on the like relationships between the characters. And so yeah, the fact that like we barely even know Annabeth at this point, and it's been the whole first act, and like Grover is still kind of just the quirky like weird friend. Like we don't have like the trio hasn't even clicked yet, and that's crazy.
Interesting. You know what? But it is A good vibe.
So this is the end of Act 1.
This is the end of Act 1.
Yay! We did it!
Any closing thoughts about Act 1?
Mal, I feel like you were the harshest towards this musical. I feel like RJ and I really loved it.
Yeah, we really were throwing softballs, and you were giving it no mercy.
I feel like you guys made some good points that I hadn't considered.
Hey, we know a lot about musicals.
Still love this musical.
We do too.
Lightning Thief, They Could Never Make Me Hate You.
Or El Ladrón del Rayo, as they say.
Yeah. Do you two have anything to plug? Current projects, things, people? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so we together are a theater company called the Hearty Meal, and we have full-length musicals on YouTube at the Hearty Meal. If you want to watch our Morbius parody musical, it's Morbin Time. I play Morbius and Cameron plays Milo. It's available, full thing. And we're also on TikTok and Instagram at the Hearty Meal.
And we're working on the Lightning Thief, the Gabe musical.
The 7-layer tragedy.
You can also watch the Problem Trolley, which is our trolley problem musical on YouTube.
I play the trolley.
RJ, you're also off Broadway right now.
Oh yeah. I'm currently a swing in the off-Broadway show Dungeons and Dragons, the 20-sided tavern. So if you come to that in New York, you might see old me playing a bunch of characters and having a good old time. Yeehaw.
Yeehaw indeed. All right. Well, this has been a delight. I really enjoy hearing you two talk about musicals. I feel like you have critical but fair takes on them. So I am excited to continue with Act 2 later.
Does the episode end with a thunderclap as well?
It does not actually. It just ends with the music.
Dang.
Zeus has been eating that 7-layer bean too.
He's about to let one rip.
Maybe I'll end this episode with a thunder just for you guys.
With a little fart mixed in.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hi, RJ and Cameron will be back next week for some Act 2 musical discussion. Then in 2 weeks, Julie returns. In the meantime, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at DemigodDebutPod. You can also find our socials as well as the socials for the Hearty Meal in the episode description. See you later. Bye!